The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. Chapter 13. Look, there's Geneva, Britta says, pointing to the cheerful southern novice as we stream outside later in the morning. By now I've washed, dressed, and eaten the breakfast of oats and honey the assistants set out for us. The accompanying sausages I give to Britta, since the smell of them turned my stomach. I don't think I can eat meat anymore. You wanted to ask her about the heraldry, remember? Britta says before hurrying towards her. Honored Elder Blood Sister Geneva! Honored Elder Blood Sister Geneva! Geneva turns towards us. Neophyte Britta, she says, is something the matter? No, just got a question for ye, Honored Blood Sister. The heraldry. Where is it? In the Hall of Records, next to the library on the upper floor. She pauses, glances at Britta. Was it your mother or your grandmother who was a shadow? Mother, possibly, I say, drawing her attention to me. One of her eyebrows raises. So it's for you, Neophyte Dika. How intriguing. Well, good fortune to you getting there. When Britta and I glance at her confused and she explains, Neophytes are allowed into the library only on free days, and you get those only after the first 3 weeks are ended. So again, good fortune to you, Neophyte. The moment she's gone, I whirl to Britta, horrified. 3 weeks? I can't wait that long. Who knows what will happen between now and then? What if we start training with death streaks? The novices told us at breakfast that they didn't do so until their 3rd month at Wardubera. But that was because they were training only for raids against local death streak nests. Now that the death streak migration is upon us, everybody's preparing for the campaign, which means we'll be trained even more intensely than they were. I wouldn't be surprised if we had to spar with death streaks starting this week. There has to be another way. There has to, I say to Britta, panic rising. What if my eyes change color in their presence again? What if someone sees, exposes me? Dread chokes me as I think of what could happen. The Karmokos forcing me into the caverns beneath the Wardubera to conduct tests the way the elders did back at Urfut. The Jatu dragging me away to be executed again and again. I can't do that again. I can't. I have to learn about Mother, find some method to control whatever ability is growing within me. Right now, the heraldry is the only hope I have. I try to calm my thought as Britta replies, There will be, Daka. We just have to search for it. Besides, isn't it a good thing that you can sense death streaks? I still. Well, what? Think of how useful it'll be when we go on raids and such. It could be very valuable. We could use it on raids since the death streaks before they even appear. It might give us an advantage. Britta shrugs, completely unaware what she's upended my entire worldview. Valuable. All this time, I've been terrified of my ability, but what if it's a useful weapon? A sword to unsheath when the situation requires. And Britta saw so easily what I could not, accepted so easily what even my own family couldn't. Tears sear my eyes and I blink them back. I watch as she continues. Perhaps instead of trying to hide it, you should try to master it. Control it. You have a point, I finally managed to say. I do, don't I? She seems very pleased with herself. Let's find out what you can about your mother, and then we can start training it. After we finish these first few weeks, that is. She pulls me on with following the line of other girls. Our first lesson for the day is in a small, plain wooden building that sits in the middle of a hill. The sun has only just begun to stretch itself in the sky, but it's already hot when we enter. Karmoko Huon is waiting for us. Cross-legged on the reed mat, a pale yellow half mask covering her from forehead to nose. This morning, she's wearing a pretty blue robe embroidered with pink flowers, and her hair is held up by an ornate jeweled comb. A pair of heavily armed Jatu stand behind her, arms folded menacingly. Find your seats, neophytes, she says in her soft, calm voice, pointing at the reed mats that they have laid out in 2 orderly rows. Britta and I look at each other, then quickly do as we're told, dipping a knee in greeting to her before hurrying to the mats at the very back, along with the twins, Katya and Big Kalis. As I settle into a kneel, I'm dimly aware of Ghazal glowering at us from the shadows, where a few other novices have taken their seats. There are about 5 or 6 of them, but Ghazal and Geneva are the only ones I recognize. Karmoko Huon claps her hands. "Welcome to your first combat class, neophytes," she says. "I'm Karmoko Huon, and I will teach you to use your body as a weapon. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance." She bows formally to us. We all look at her, unsure of how to reply to this new greeting. "Bow to the Karmoko," Ghazal barks. When we quickly try to comply, fumbling in our attempt, Karmoko Huon holds up her hand. "I think, Ghazal," she says, amused, "you have to demonstrate first." She turns to us. "Like this," she says, touching her head to the floor. "This is how you greet your Karmokos when you are on the mat. Now you try." We quickly replicate the bow. Karmoko Huon mouth quirks. "Good. Not perfect, but good." We turn to each other relieved. "At least we didn't completely disgrace ourselves," Britta whispers to me out the corner of her mouth. I suddenly wonder whether the recruits are having the same troubles we are. Not likely. A memory of Kita's sword callous hand rises, and I shiver it away. Turn back to Karmoko Huon as she gratefully rises. "Now then," she says decisively. "In order to engage in combat, you must first know your forms. Forms are battle stances, each one a tiny part of a dance you will soon become intimately familiar with. The dance of death." My eyes narrow. A dance? How is a dance going to help us fight death shrieks? On the other side of me, Edwapa scoffs under her breath. Dance of death. She's gonna get us killed this one. A hairpin slams into the wall behind her, something pinned underneath it. A piece of flesh, golden blood still dripping from it. Edwapa turns to see it, and her eyes widen with shock. "My ear!" she gasps, holding her left ear. The top half of it is gone. Karmoko Huon smiles mildly, rearranging the portion of her hair that's now fallen from the rest of her pins. For the first time, there's a look of steel in her gaze, the power hidden behind that ornamental exterior. She calmly stretches out her hand towards Edwapa. "I seem to have lost my hairpin, neophyte. Can you fetch it for me?" Clutching her bleeding ear, Edwapa slowly retrieves the pin, then, trembling, hands it to Karmoko Huon. The Karmoko smiles gratefully and dismisses her with a nod. Once Edwapa had returned to her seat, Karmoko Huon turns to the rest of the class and says, "Shall we continue?" "Yes, Karmoko," we quickly say, still in shock. Karmoko Huon nods, rises. "I shall now demonstrate the first form." She plants her feet apart and shifts her weight so it's concentrated on her lower body. When she spreads her arms in a graceful but precise movement, her expression stern, something inside me trembles. Karmoko Huon reminds me of white hands, pretty on the outside, deadly on the inside. In the unmovable earth form, you are centered at your most powerful. You are in perfect position to attack or evade. She demonstrates quickly, her movements precise but fluid. "I will show you." She beckons to the larger of the 2 Jatu behind her, a hulking beast of a man, then bows formally when he approaches. He quickly bows as well. He launches into an attack, and we all watch, rapt. How will Karmoko handle this head-on attack? To my surprise, Karmoko flips him onto his back before he can even touch her, then twists his wrist into an odd and painful angle. "Yield! I yield!" the Jatu cries out, his eyes bulging from the pain. The Karmoko tuts, but her eyes are as cold as icicles. First lesson, neophytes. Alaki do not yield. You conquer or you die. For an Alaki, for any warrior, death should be a familiar friend, an old partner you greet before you step onto the battlefield. Do not fear it. Do not shy from it. Embrace it. Tame it to your will. That is why we always say, we who are dead salute you, to our commanders before we ride off into battle. A strange, uneasy feeling builds inside my gut. Death should be a familiar friend. I can barely fathom the concept. Karmoko Huon finally releases the Jatu hand and bows to him again. My thanks for your aid, she says sweetly. The burly man gives a pained nod, then limps off, wincing. By now, we're all quiet, tense. Karmoko Huon turns to us. Do you know why I chose to demonstrate that move with him, neophytes? She asks. We shake our heads slowly. Because I wanted to show you that size does not matter, she explains. No opponent is infallible, no matter how big he is. Death shrieks may be bigger, but no matter how frightening they seem, how intimidating they may be, you are just as strong, just as fast, especially when you enter the combat state, which you experienced this morning when you ran and your senses became heightened, your reflex sharpened. We will explore this more as time goes on. For now, let us continue the lesson. And that was chapter 13, man. Karmoko Huon is not to be played with. But you know the drill. This is chapter 13. Let me know who your favorite character is so far in the comments. Make sure to like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on chapter 14.